In recent episodes, I've been discussing village homes in Davis, California, a 50-year-old permaculture urbanist community. Some of its more prominent features include water retention landscaping and food forests, which you can see pictured here from my visit in 2017. Now, whenever these topics come up, the question always seems to arise, are food forests and water retention landscapes even practical in cities? Are they too costly to set up and maintain? Do they have hidden costs and problems down the road? Do they even do what people expect them to do? And why do we even need them in the first place? All coming up in this episode. Welcome to Edonicity, best practices for sustainably abundant cities. Let's start with the swales and the water retention basins. A swale is a contour irrigation trench, often connected to a pond. If you were walking along the trenches that you see in this picture, you would be going neither uphill nor downhill. You would be walking on contour. The benefit of this is that the swale captures rainwater coming down the hill all along its length, making it available to the pond that's connected to it. Now, you would think, as many do, that swales are best in situations where you have nearly constant rain year-round rather than dry landscapes with occasional heavy floods. The concern and the misconception here is that a swale can't handle a really heavy rain event and might just simply wash out. But in fact, swales are specifically designed to buffer floods and droughts, especially in dry climates. They work by soaking the first few inches of a rainfall into the root nets along the soft mound downhill of the swale, which has the knock-on effect of holding water in the soil long enough for it to percolate down to the shallow aquifer and recharge it. Swales also move excess floodwater to attached ponds. Both of these effects drastically reduce overflow volume, which reduces flood damage downhill. Now, like anything else that is designed and built, there are best practices for swale construction. To prevent washouts, permaculturists are trained not to dig swales on slopes greater than about 18 degrees, and to be sure to handle the overflow properly. This would be a concrete or a rock spillway placed anywhere along the swale or adjacent to the dam, or at the very least for small swales and ponds, a swivel pipe that connects to an outfall lower on the property. It's also essential to promptly stabilize the soil with multi-layer plantings after digging. These would include cover crops, nitrogen-fixing shrubs and trees, and your larger fruit crop trees. In dry climates, which are prone to long periods of drought punctuated by floods, it's important to dig more swales closer together to increase the soakage during a heavy flood event. This helps to retain water in the soft mounds in the soil longer after the flood ends, and also, of course, to recharge that aquifer. Now, there's also this perception that swales are high maintenance, and that if not properly maintained, they will stop holding water, and also that if they're lumpy, you can have mosquitoes. That is to say, if they have lots of pools that take a week or two to dry out after a rain event, that could start to breed mosquitoes. But in fact, village homes' water retention basins have served for 50 years, easily retaining floodwaters not only from the neighborhood of village homes, but also excess floodwaters from the town of Davis, which has less natural infiltration built into the landscape. And this article points out that the natural drainage systems and water retention basins connect to more permanent ponds that are stocked with mosquito-eating fish. Now, according to a Purdue extension report that I've linked below, ponds that are stocked with mosquito-eating fish and amphibians can reduce mosquito populations by 90% compared to situations without ponds. In their book, Designing Sustainable Communities, Judy and Michael Corbett, who founded Village Homes, pointed out that the reduced irrigation cost offset the landscape maintenance costs, and also the money that they didn't spend on storm sewer drains was enough to dig their drainage system and fully plant it with multiple layers of edible plants. And again, it was an uphill battle with the Planning and Public Works Department to get approval for this, but it has proved itself time and time again over 5 decades. So for these permaculture earthworks, if it exists and performs well, it must be theoretically possible. Let's talk about these food forests. There's a concern about the high maintenance cost of a food forest. So let's take a quick tour of the Village Homes landscape. The public park was in great shape when I visited in August of 2017. The gardens were struggling about as much as most suburban public gardens do at that time of year. The vineyard was not permacultural at all. It wasn't layered vertically with different productive species of plants. But those layered food forests that you find in the common areas between parallel blocks of 4 houses in Village Homes were thriving. Owners could get reduced homeownership association fees if they got together and created a plan and then maintained that landscape according to their approved plan. And again, these were just beautiful and productive, multi-layered gardens doing extremely well. It was kind of amazing to walk through the landscapes and just listen to neighbors either talking with each other about what they were doing in the garden or harvesting or just being engaged with the landscape and with the people around them. In a very real sense, the community built the landscape together, and then the landscape maintained and weaved the community together. And I could see this happening just in a few hours visit. Now, I know there'll be some who think, well, this is too much trouble. And I think there were a few houses that opted to have professional maintenance. There were 3 professional full-time landscapers on the 70-acre, 245-house property. But where you saw these landscapes, they just drew you outdoors to enjoy them and to participate and interact with them. And then you're also interacting with the other people who together co-created it with you. These are not just airy, fluffy words. These are solid, living processes that you could see and touch, and in the case of the fruits on this tree, taste. And they basically created an Edenic landscape. Now, what would Edenicity add to this? Remember, Edenicity is a multifamily system, meaning that people live in townhouses or brownstones or apartments. And in this case, you have large rooftop areas that are available for gardening, as well as between the buildings, block-scale orchards, similar to the common yards in village homes. And then finally, between entire villages, this would be neighborhoods the size of village homes or larger, you would have village farm belts. And these are all described in this episode here. Now, in the case of Edenicity, having lived in many townhouses and apartments myself, I see the majority of the landscape being maintained by professionals who live on site. I mean, yes, of course, there can and should be as much participation by the community as people would enjoy. But without professional management, basically, the gardens would come to resemble community gardens, which are often half neglected in neighborhoods across the United States and probably throughout the world. But why do we need permaculture urbanism? 2 words, land use. By occupying half the land, we've wiped out half the life on Earth, mainly by replacing many layers of life that exist in natural ecosystems with, at most, just one layer of life, and that would be the crop that we're growing. Our agriculture accounts for over 40% of the land area of the Earth, and it has damaged soils beyond repair over an area the size of China plus India since World War II. This obviously cannot last, and the scale of it makes this an imminent threat to life on this planet. On the other hand, 57% of us live in cities on just 3% of the land. The idea of permaculture is to use a system of layered ecological home and farm design to increase our food yields by up to a factor of 10, as has been done since antiquity, according to this book by David R. Montgomery. And again, I put a link in the description below. So doing more permaculture in cities to feed ourselves on that small amount of land with greater attention to what we're doing seems to be an obvious direction to go to try to solve this problem. But you might think, well, wait a minute, cities are pretty crowded. Where are you going to find the space to grow all that food? 50 to 80% of urban land is devoted to cars in the form of streets, highways, roads, parking, and even just the green strips between the sidewalk and the street, and those huge setbacks that people insist on having in their front yards to separate themselves from dangerous traffic. That's why, to do permaculture at scale in cities, we need to bring in urbanism, which is the human-centered design of large-scale systems in cities, things like energy, transportation, water, and recreation. An urbanist approach to this problem would be to free up most of the land in cities for other uses such as agriculture by building public rather than private transit infrastructure. This uses, conservatively, 1/10 as much space, material, energy, and money as cars, and is 20 to 50 times safer. It's especially convenient and economical when paired with mixed-use multifamily development. And again, these are big themes in modern urbanism. Edenicity, then, is a design system for permaculture urbanism. The goal of Edenicity is to free up enough land to restore the lost half of life on Earth. And when we get into the details, as I've done in well over 100 episodes on this channel so far, we find that the design naturally leads to greater convenience, safety, health, and affordability. If it exists, it must be possible to do many of these things. In Village Homes, we have a thriving 50-year-old permaculture urbanist community with integrated livable systems for food, water, housing, transportation, recreation, and energy. The food system is the food forest between the houses. The water system is the system of swales and retention ponds. The housing is laid out east to west for maximum solar gain and ease of placement of solar panels. The transportation system, as I discussed last episode, strongly favors bicycles and foot traffic. The recreational spaces are thoughtfully designed to bring people together. And again, energy is integrated with housing. These are not complete design results, of course. The food system does not provide 100% of the food, far from it. The energy system does not provide 100% of the energy that people use. Even the water system does not completely eliminate the need to irrigate with pumped well water. But the systems were designed at scale together with many permaculture principles in mind. Now, because people have been asking, to qualify for Edenicity, a development must also be car-free, multifamily, and transit-oriented, in addition to being mixed-use and producing its own food and energy. I would absolutely love to work with any developer on delivering these design elements and driving public awareness of their work. Now, to learn more about Edenicity, you can check out the video above. Download the reference design from the links below, and while you're there, you might as well like and subscribe if you haven't already. As always, many thanks to our wonderful patrons on Patreon who financially support this channel. Take care, stay green, see you next time.